and then we'll have to wait like 20 seconds and then we'll go live on Instagram. Then we can kind of jump into it. But what's up, everybody? James Corbett here with FML by Project Refit, which usually means fuck my life. In this case, means for my life. And of course, we always try to bring on guests who kind of share their stories about, where they were, where they are, and why it matters and how they got to where they are now in terms of just still even being with us to this day. Because as we know, some people are struggling even with trying to find some purpose and meaning in their lives, and recognizing why it matters to still be here and why life itself and living itself is worth it in general. And that is the purpose, is to live so you can provide your story to others. And that is the purpose to live for. All of your suffering has a meaning, and that's what we kind of go for. The encouragement of pain and suffering is the ink to the pen that writes a story of your life. So that is it. And we have Anthony Delgado here with us today. Super excited to talk to you, brother. Brought on by Ski, actually. Wade brought him on. And Wade felt like it would be a really good message for Anthony to bring to us and all the refit people here. So Wade, actually, before we jump into Anthony, why don't you give us a background introduction to Anthony, and Anthony, you can introduce yourself.
Anthony is a family friend of ours that I was introduced to by my wife. We have some commonalities as far as Iraq, but Anthony went on a militia level, and I went with the United States Army. He actually went to join up with the Kurdish forces, not officially with the United States, which I think is far more incredible. And then not only that, but this guy gets back and then Ukraine pops off and he goes over there to fight for Ukraine. And I'm like, all right, and speaking with Anthony, he had some things to say about Ukraine that is not common knowledge. And I felt that it was important to not only tell his story and, his truth, but also to give some perspective on people thinking about going over to Ukraine to fight, because there's a lot of us, like I've contemplated it, man. I'm not going to lie. So, for anybody listening, maybe this guy could help you.
Okay, cool. Love that. Anthony, rocket.
Yeah, man. I appreciate the kind words there, Wade. And I enlisted into the U.S. Air Force when I was 17 years old. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. My brothers and I were taken out of the house when I was a kid because my mother had drug issues. So I kind of grew up bouncing in and out of, Department of Child and Family Services and whatnot. I was running away from these group homes and facilities when I was a teenager. I kept getting picked up on family court warrants or brought back to court. And one of my ways out of it was deciding to enlist into the military. I never even graduated high school at that point, but I have a cousin named Anthony Jeffrey Delgado. My name's Anthony Joseph Delgado. So I borrowed his high school diploma, went down to a recruiting office, and enlisted into the Air Force at 17, while I still had like a little family court, warrant for my arrest from running away from these facilities. So I went and turned myself into court, and they said, "Oh, we're putting you away today." And then I just presented my enlistment papers to the judge. He says, "You're no longer a civilian," and off I went to basic. So I was in from 96 to 98. I was in the Rhode Island Air National Guard, 143rd Logistics Squadron. And I was at Aquanda Point, Rhode Island. Nothing major, it was no deployments. It was just pretty much a pogue job, this, that, and the other thing. And, I just bounced around hanging out with girls, this, that, and the other thing.
Oh, boy.
And, I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. So then 9/11.
Yeah, can't hear that shit.
Yeah. So then, I'm a New York native. I was in downtown Brooklyn on 9/11. I went up to the roof of the building I was staying at over on Union Street, and I literally watched the towers fall with my own eyes. Like everybody talks about where they were at on 9/11, and I was here and I was in class, and I was at work and this, that, and the other thing. And I actually saw like the towers fall, and the ashes from all the debris like covered all the cars in my neighborhood, this, that, and the other thing. By that time, I was already out of the military. Wished I could get back in, but I had, by that point, 2001, I had violated the tattoo policy with getting all tatted up on my hands and neck and everything, and picked up a couple of misdemeanor assault charges and all that other stuff that I would have had to get waivers for. But so there was no way I was going to be accepted back into the U.S. military as far as I thought, anyway. But fast forward into 2017, Al Qaeda, evolves into, what is known as the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. And I saw this news stories about, ISIS fighters and convoys of U.S. Humvees and MRAPs and all this other shit that they commandeered off the Iraqi army, when they turned their backs and ran away from the Islamic State. So now they're just cruising down and, raping and pillaging and all this U.S. made equipment. And seeing the stories on the news, and I'm getting pissed. I'm like, this, they're still at it, this, that, and the other thing. I learned that the U.S. military, rather than redeploy boots on the ground into Iraq, into Syria, what they did was they sent special forces in small numbers, and they coached up on the Iraq side of the border, the Peshmerga, and on the Syrian side of the border, the YPG. The Kurds have always been our allies since the first Gulf War. We turned our backs on them after they helped us, and Saddam gassed them and killed them by the tens of thousands. But they still, were willing to help and, work with the U.S. military. So I learned that the Peshmerga on the Iraqi side of the border was accepting U.S. military veterans into their ranks. At the time, I was just a bouncer at a club in New Jersey. I had some girlfriend that I was constantly arguing with, this, that, and the other thing. And, I managed to accumulate the funds to get a one-way ticket. I made contact with them through a Facebook page, actually, called U.S. Veterans Fighting ISIS. And I says, how are U.S. veterans fighting ISIS? What's this all about? So I learned that American veterans were going and joining these Kurdish groups to go fight the Islamic State. So I started contacting them. I started getting inboxed by a couple of guys. A couple of guys pointed me in the right direction, let me know what the procedure was. And I saved up the money. And in 2017, I landed in Suleimania, Iraq.
What a fucking leap of faith.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And I had nothing but a contact phone number. It was like, land in Suleimania, Iraq, and call this number, right? So I had never been deployed. I had never been out of America, and, none of that or whatever. But I went for it. So I land in Suleimania, Iraq. I make this phone call, and just these trucks of these Kurdish fighters with a couple of Americans and a couple of Canadians pull up. Hey, welcome. This, that, and the other thing. They drove me to a local safe house.
This, that, and the other thing is wild to say.
Yeah.
By the way, after that, what you just said, that is, I mean, honestly, bro, that is wild. Like, a couple Canadians, a couple Americans, and a couple Kurdish fighters show up. They say, hi, what's up, jump in, this, that, and the other. Yeah. What? I just want you to know, I find that to be incredible. Keep going. Sorry.
Yeah. So at the time, the Peshmerga was mopping up in the city of Mosul, Iraq. Mosul, Iraq was the home of the Islamic State's caliphate on the Iraq side of the border, and on the Syrian side of the border, it was in Raqqa, Syria. That's, the two, major strong points of the Islamic State. So with the Peshmerga, they were mopping up over in Mosul. There wasn't really a lot going on. Got introduced to the AK, got some trigger time with that, got coached up on their weapon systems. All the Kurdish fighters don't have, there's a couple of M4s and M16s floating around, but it's mostly PKMs, RPGs, AK-47s, all that other stuff. So I got familiarized mostly with the Peshmerga, with those weapons, but there wasn't really as much fighting going on as I had expected. I thought we were going to take part in operations. They would say, oh yeah, they have a word in Kurdish called Sibe, which means tomorrow. So it's always Sibe, tomorrow, Sibe, and it's like, come on, what's going on? So the guys in the U.S. Veterans Fighting ISIS group that were telling me, hey, listen, things are really popping off on the Syrian side of the border. If you want to come and join the YPG, which stands for People's Protection Unit, is another Kurdish group that the U.S. Special Forces were working with. So I made the trip in a truck across Iraq, courtesy of the Peshmerga, and I got to a base camp in right near the Euphrates River in western Iraq, right near the Syrian border and the Turkish border, right under the Euphrates River, because all three of those countries meet together right at the at the Tigris River. I'm sorry, Euphrates River is in Syria, but all three of those countries meet together right at the Tigris River. So I got out. I went to this base camp. There was a bunch of YPG fighters. We walked after dark across all these mountain tops and everything in the dark, and I was gassed. I had my rucksack on. It's pitch black. I'm rolling my ankle, but these dudes are just hopping up and down these little cliffs like cheetahs. You know what I mean? And,
Damn, another amazing way to describe shit.
And you can't even see shit in front of you, but these dudes just knew their way. And before you know it, they're saying, "Hey, guess what? We're in Syria now." We walked a little bit further. There were some trucks. We hopped on. I got to a YPG base camp in Derek, Syria. I was there for about 2 weeks, going through their procedures, putting together my kit and getting their mixed uniforms that they had, whatever. And then we started making our way, down into southern, a little bit more south in Syria. We crossed the Euphrates River, and we took part in operations. We landed at the Tapka Pier. Tapka had a massive dam that the Islamic State had a stronghold on, and they were getting ready to blow it up, and it would have just caused massive problems for the local, civilian population if they did that. So we fought back. We took the dam, and it was crazy. It was just like, it was urban combat. We were in the city, and what we would do is we would just go building to building. We'd be in one building. We'd go up on the roof. We'd sledgehammer spider holes in the wall, put our PKMs and our AKs through, fire on anything that moved in front of us to the north. And the Kurdish YPG would pull out tablets that the U.S. military gave them and mark little spots on the tablet. And all of a sudden, here come the airstrikes. Boom, boom. Damn. And then we would just move out of that building, move forward 2 more blocks, break into that building, and set up again, and just keep pushing north until we got to their last stronghold in the city of Tapka, which was a hospital that they always think if they post up in a mosque or a hospital, we can't bomb it or destroy it, this, that, and the other thing, whatever. But that was their last stronghold, and we pushed the last of their fighters out. We did lose a lot of guys afterwards to booby traps and IEDs that they left behind, and there were just some hardcore Islamic State fighters that were true believers that would just drive at you with car bombs or just walk up to you with suicide vests and all that other shit. And that was their method of fighting. It's also the first time where I had seen a drone used in warfare. They would fly a drone over you, and they had these little drop systems that weren't very accurate and they weren't very effective, but they would definitely drop shit on you. And, so you had to watch out for that. But that was like, whoa, wow, I'd never seen it, even thought about that before. But that's just straight up down and dirty guerrilla warfare. You know what I mean? That's what they do. Roadside bombs, IEDs, it's dirty, and we think of it as, all terrorists, type shit. But, in their mind, it's just guerrilla warfare. So if they're using a drone that they send up in the air and they got a guy in the truck with a radio, and that dude that's using the drone is saying, okay, turn left here, turn right here, there they are, go, floor it. They're using that truck basically as a guided missile, basically.
That's insane. That is fucking insane.
Yeah, and it's like it's their car bomb is their missile, and the drone is the eyes. So it's the shit that they come up with, and it was definitely an experience.
Very effective too, I'm sure.
Yeah, the car bombs were unbelievable. That tactic. I mean, they would take these simple trucks like Toyota Helix pickups and just weld a whole bunch of steel plates around it and make it look like some kind of turtle and something out of Mad Max. And they would just drive that shit right into you, and it would be loaded and just boom. You know what I mean? and just leave a crater that's the size of a swimming pool in the middle of the street.
We have a question from one of our own, Ray. He said, "How is the language barrier, and how were you able to communicate with your team over there?"
So Ray's a recon Marine, retired. So he definitely is really curious about that.
Yeah. So now at that time in 2018, so I had gone from the Peshmerga in 2017 and I crossed the border into Syria. So now I'm in Syria. It's 2018. I was in Syria for about roughly 6 months. And at that time, it's weird. It's crazy how much you can get across by using your hands. You know what I mean?
Yeah, body
And,
language, very important.
And it's crazy because I was like
and facial expressions, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's all that. I mean,
Yeah.
and I'm a competitive power lifter. Well, was at the time or whatever. So I went over. I was kind of jacked or whatever, and they were calling me John Cena. So it's like somehow they're watching.
I don't even know who I'm talking to right now. Are we talking to anybody right now? John Cena?
Yeah, they say John Cena, and I
That's
said,
great, dude.
Yeah. So
They
it's
called
like
me Vin Diesel overseas. It was just funny because like I don't look anything like him.
Nothing,
I was
dude.
just a bald white guy.
That's great. So we got Vin Diesel and John Cena. Let's go. One guy we don't even know who we're talking to. One guy he says family a lot.
Family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Keep going, Ant. Keep going.
Yeah. So I mean, I rocked out for about 6 months with them.
Thank you. Ray.
Decided it was time to come home after that. And so at the time I lived in Jersey. I lived over in Asbury Park.
Oh, shut the fuck up. All right.
Yeah. So it turns out I was with this girl for about like, I don't know, like 6 months before I left or whatever. And I made sure she was squared away with rent and all that other shit. Anyway, here comes Jody striking at John Cena. So she meets some dude or whatever. She's like, moves him in the house and all that other stuff. That's that and the other thing. So, like, I essentially at that time I came back to Jersey with nothing, but I had a bunch of cool people around me and everything. So there's a couple, my boys that are like, forget that chick, man. Mi casa, su casa, bro. Here's the next bedroom. You know what I mean? My boss needs some help over at this place or whatever. So here's a gig. And, I did my thing and, I got back on my feet and I eventually ended up moving up to Providence, Rhode Island with my brother to take a summer job at a country club and in a kitchen paying good money. And while I was in Providence, I met a girl who was from Fall River, Mass, who I used to spend the weekends with. So I ended up moving in with her and not even going back to Jersey. And that's what put me in Mass. So,
nice.
I got my personal training certification. I was, the GM over at Planet Fitness in Dartmouth, Mass. And then I ended up switching roughly 2 years ago over to Workout Brothers, the GM. And that's what I was doing up until I went to Ukraine.
What a fucking like all over here life.
Yeah.
A little bit of everything. Let me ask you a question. Something I was curious about when you were talking about it. Did you get paid while you were over there doing that stuff?
I was thinking that shit too.
In Syria, no, it was completely voluntary, but what was cool is they ended up paying for the flight home, which is cool. You know what I mean? Like they got you back home and everything.
So they once you get over there, they fed you and you ate and had a house, or not a house, but like a place to sleep, and you just deployed with them.
Yeah, I mean, basically, like when we were out on operations, we were posting up in bombed out buildings. We were like, people would have like random goats and chickens and shit running around in the yard. The Kurds would slaughter them. They'd make like a stew out of it and shit. Or we'd start going in the cabinets of, the abandoned buildings and shit and just grabbing whatever we could to eat. We would pack
fucking insane, bro.
We would pack this bread.
You're living. Hang on, real quick.
This is so exciting. I want to do this.
Yeah, this is like a real life. What the fuck is it called? Those video game. Not trying to say video games, but I am going to say video games real quick. It's like the looting when you jump into fucking
Warzone,
like Warzone, or what's the other one? The one was really popular at one point. Because I'm imagining him just like wearing regular. Because Warzone, you're wearing like kitted out and shit. Not Fortnite. Oh fuck.
Oh. Damn it.
I can't remember.
PUBG.
PUBG. That's exactly what it was. All right. So like just kid it out, doing your own bullshit, fucking people up, and basically literally living off of the properties and land around you, and you're fighting for them. And you know what's really cool about what you said and why it stands out to me? You said it was great that they flew you home. That means that you were so grateful just to be a part of the fight and help out in any way. You were just even grateful that they flew you home.
Didn't
you
even mention not getting
exactly
paid. Yeah.
none of that shit. You didn't care about
Yeah,
any of
that's
that.
so awesome.
That's actually really fucking gangster. I'm not gonna lie. That's really cool, man. That means you were doing it for the right reasons too, right? Like you are genuinely just grateful to be able to help out. And hey, now I'm also going and doing this. Like
fucking
it's
badass.
very,
Oh my
very
God.
cool, man. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That speaks a lot to your character too as a person.
I appreciate that. And one thing about the Kurds, man, like they pride themselves on being, they call themselves guerrilla fighters, right? Like they don't like dudes showing up with like all kinds of like high speed shit. Like they're like, what is this crap? Like, come on, you're a guerrilla now. You're a guerrilla fighter. Like, you know, these dudes got all like bandanas and shit. Like they got like ammo belts wrapped around them and shit.
Right. PUBG.
Like they're wearing Adidas and shit, you know.
Yeah, PUBG. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
It keeps on going. It's just PUBG,
You know?
dude. You got fucking Toyotas, and you got your like fucking 50 cals in the back of Toyotas. You were literally doing guerrilla warfare.
I would have been
shit.
that dickhead that tried to be Fortnite, and I would have just ran around with a yellow banana outfit on, slaying people, stewing goats.
Yeah, I actually got the opportunity, man. They had this 12.7 millimeter Dushka mounted on the back of this Toyota Helix, and we built like a ballistic plate on the front of it, but just like enough so you can see through both sides of the plates. And that thing wrecked shit. And you know, I fire like, you know, 4 or 5 rounds out of that shit. My nose would start bleeding and everything.
Oh my God.
Shit, you know, dust flying up everywhere. But like whatever it was hitting, like if they were taking pop shots at us from some kind of structure or whatever, you send 4 or 5 of those rounds into that shit, the building starts crumbling and everything. And it would definitely suppress whatever kind of shit they were trying to throw at us or whatever. So that was the best. That was the most interesting weapon system I've ever fired in my life. And I'm lucky it didn't explode either with some shit from like Russia from like the 60s or whatever. But
I'm surprised you didn't say like I was like shooting that shit, this, that, and the other. I was waiting for that to come out, dude. So bad.
So my nose was bleeding. This, that, and the other.
Yeah. So serious question though too. There actually is there. I'm actually going to ask this question first because it is a. He said that's an anti-aircraft gun. That makes sense. That it was fucking making your nose bleed after you shot it. But there's a really good question here. It's would you also say that life was very simple then, like when you were fighting, like when you look back on it?
It's because when I was in the U.S. military, I'd never been deployed. I'd never done anything, whatever that I felt was no deployments or nothing. That's that. Well, here we go. This, that, and the other.
I love it, dude. I love it, dude.
But when I look back, and when I looked back after I had gotten home from them, I had wished that I was back there so many times.
Yep.
It was, we scavenged for food. It was tough. I lost like 40 pounds. It was definitely the most incredible experience or anything I've ever been through in my entire life. So once I got back stateside in late 2018, and just tried to go back to a regular job and just live in civilian life or whatever. Yeah, it really sucked or whatever. I would say it was excitement and simple as well.
Yeah. That's actually something that's very common that you hear, especially from anybody that's been deployed. It's, some guys, actually something I'm beginning to notice, I've been talking about it a lot recently, is when I say talking about it a lot, I'm talking to Lisa about it all the time. Like, it's really interesting. Like guys who deployed who are in combat, they miss combat. They don't actually have like they don't fear combat. It's actually they miss how like simple it was, and the issues that that people are having. It's more and more and more. It's not even from combat. It's not even from. It's actually from regular life and like the things that are exacerbated. They saw how in almost what Ray said, how simple it was, how very direct it was I need to eat, live, kill, right? Or I'm going to be killed. It's such an interesting experience. And he said any combat you would have experienced in U.S. military wasn't war. That experience you had was actually war, was actual war. Yeah, yeah. It's really it's such an interesting concept to think that that phrase that you just said, I miss it. I want to go back over there. It's absolutely synonymous with almost every single combat veteran that I personally have ever talked to.
It's very common.
Not one of them have I talked to yet that said like I would never want to go back. Every single one of them wants to go back. And it's not even for the killing or anything like the slaughter bullshit. It's literally the camaraderie, the community, the trust, like the support that you felt when you're there. Is that about right for you too? Is it those things, not like the
Yeah, some of those things definitely hit home, but I'm with this different ethnic group of people who were so appreciative of us being there.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is like the U.S. Special Forces were there strictly in a support role. I mean, they did a couple of kill and capture missions of high value targets, and they did their thing or whatever. But when I came across the U.S. military when I was there, they were just like, "Whoa, what?" They're like, "What the WTF are you doing here?"
You
Like,
can say what the fuck, you're fine.
Yeah, okay, right. So they're like, "What the fuck's going on? Where are you from?" This, that, and the other thing. "Oh, I'm from Jersey." This, that, and the other thing. They gave us some of their cool MREs that they had. They gave us. One guy, I was asking him if he had an extra can of dip. He gave me his dip because
Let's go, dude.
I ran out of shit, and it was a really like eye-opening, like life-changing experience to be with this in this third world country with these guerrilla fighters, and some of them, no bullshit, man, were like 15, 16 years old. It is what it is, man. They use child soldiers, and they do it. They all lie about their age or whatever, but come on, man. I know this little kid running around with a big PKM, a little sledgehammer sticking out of his back is like 16, 17 years old. And it was cool. It was I smoked hash with him a couple of times, in between stuff, whatever. It is what it is. People do this stuff or whatever. But yeah, it was an experience. And I came home in 2018 and just started trying to work a civilian job again, and just miserable and pretty dull existence. So, fast forward to 2022. I'm hooked up. I'm engaged. Living in Dartmouth, Massachusetts. I'm a GM over at Workout World, and here we go. We're starting to see news stories about Russia prepping to cross the border into Ukraine. Now I know a lot of Ukrainian people. There's a Ukrainian community up here. They're all really cool as shit, and everyone kept talking about it every day. They're gonna cross the border. They cross the border. They're gonna invade, and they did. So now there's guys that I was with over in Iraq and Syria that were part of the Peshmerga and the YPG that now go to Ukraine and join in the Ukrainian army, the Ukrainian Foreign Legion that President Zelensky put together soon after the invasion. So he basically just invited anybody that had any kind of experience and they created the Ukrainian Foreign Legion, just like France has. Yep. For volunteers to come over there and join their military and fight, so a lot of guys that I was with over in Iraq and Syria are going over to Ukraine to join the Ukrainian Legion. So the wheels start turning, right? Here we go, right? So now I'm thinking about it. I'm like, wow, Ukraine, wow. And I'm watching all this awesome GoPro footage or whatever, the fighting, of some of the guys, they're inboxing me this stuff, whatever. A lot of stuff that would never be made public because they'd definitely be charged with war crimes if they came back to the States. There's no Geneva Convention or any kind of like legit rules of engagement over there. So the wheels start turning. So I start throwing the idea out there to my fiance, and she's like, "Yeah, right. No way. Don't even think about it. What? What are you, crazy? You're gonna leave me to go to Ukraine?" And again, I have this thing, man, where it's just it is what it is. I'll be in a relationship with a girl, and things are just start turning. I get sick of arguing with females. You know what I mean? And I'm just not great at relationships, you know.
I get
So
sick of arguing with people in general.
yeah, no, it's true. And a lot of other combat veterans will also say that, hey, listen, I have problems with relationships. You know what I mean? Some of them drink too much. I definitely drank too much. I was drinking too much. I wasn't getting along with my fiance at all. And then, it finally just got to the point where I said, hey, I'm going. And I had made contact with Wade maybe about 6 months before I was going. I started discussing it with him. So once I had my mind made up that I was doing this, I started putting the funds together. I started buying some kit, stuff that I knew that I would need, and I went on a web page called Join Ukrainian Foreign Legion. Now, so I go to this webpage and they're asking for your DD-214. They got, first of all, when you go into join the Ukrainian Legion page, you'll just see these dudes on there with just low profile helmets, night vision goggles, all kinds of high speed equipment, M4s, all this Gucci ass shit, right? And they're talking about frontline position fighters get paid $4,000 a month, this, that, and so I'm telling my fiance at the time, hey, look, I can go over there and make more money than I'm making now. Not much more money, but it's hold on a second. I'm just getting a private message. Let me just.
Yeah, we can't read that out loud. That's from Ski. So
that's fine. I just close it out. So I ended up putting the funds together. Yeah, I ended up putting the funds together, and I just told my fiance, I was like, "That's it, I'm going," and I booked the ticket, and the countdown began. So I started putting my kit together, and the day finally came, and I hugged her and her kids goodbye. I hugged Wade goodbye. I said goodbye to my people, and off I went to Ukraine. So I landed in Warsaw. I landed in Krakow, Poland, and there's no functioning airport in Ukraine. So I took a little gypsy bus from Krakow, Poland to the Medyka border crossing in Ukraine. I went through Polish customs. The next building I stepped into was Ukrainian customs. And then once I stepped out of Ukrainian customs, I made my way to the nearest recruiting station. Walked in, they knew why I was there. I had my rucksack on, I'm all, I got all my military gear and stuff with me. I gave them my passport, and they scanned it. They asked me a couple of questions. They took me off to an old school building that had sandbags and was barricaded. And I went in there. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning when I got there. And I just saw like 50 racks in this empty school with just a whole bunch of dudes snoring. So it was dudes from all over the world. It was guys from, I'm getting a bunch of, let me just close this out.
You're good.
Yeah, hold on. Okay, yeah. So there's a bunch of dudes snoring. They were from all over the world. A whole bunch of Colombian dudes, for some reason. A whole bunch of dudes would like leave the Colombian army to come out and join Ukraine. So they took me to a Ukrainian sergeant. Came the next morning. He took us all, a group of like 15 of us, over to a hospital. We went ahead and we had a physical done. They gave us urine cups or whatever. And I know for a fact that like they took the urine specimens and just threw them in the trash can without
that would like really occurred to me to be strange.
Yeah. And they did like a so-called like HIV test where they took blood, but then they just took like the drop of your blood and put it on a little petri dish and like put it underneath a little thing, and was like, oh yeah, you're good. It's like, dude, you're not getting an HIV test back that fast. Like, no way. Like, you can't even do that in America. Like, how are you doing it in this hospital? A half bombed out hospital, by the way. But yeah, so they were taking everybody in the Ukrainian Foreign Legion. So I had to go to, being I was prior service, they have what's called the 4th Training Battalion in the Ukrainian Foreign Legion. Now, if you have combat experience, it's like a 2 to 3 week course. If you are a regular dude that has no combat experience, it's a 4 to 6 week course. And everybody was mixing together. So they bring us to this 4th Training Battalion that was in Yavorichi, Ukraine. And the instructors were just barbarians. I mean, there was like 2 or 3 American dudes. There was like a real prick from Czech Republic, Czechoslovakia, or some shit like that. His call sign was Falcon. He was a real jerk off. My call sign that I chose was Shades, because I have like this whole collection of Oakley sunglasses. So that's why I always, you know, if I have any of my stuff on custom made, I always have like my call sign Shades on it. That's nobody goes by their name over there. Everyone goes by their call sign. So we ended up going to 4th Training Battalion, and it was tough. I thought it was going to be a joke and they were just going to push people through, but they did not play. I had to do this vicious PT test. It was brutal. Then I had us right after this PT test. It was like push-ups, 50. They wanted 50 push-ups out of you. They wanted 50 sit-ups. They wanted 10 pull-ups. They wanted you to run for half an hour straight without stopping at a decent pace, with a rucksack on. And then came this obstacle course that was just unbelievable. Just this massive tower that you had to climb up with all your kit on, and crawling under like 200 yards of barbed wire, jumping down into like this 16-foot concrete pit, and then making your way out of it. Jumping. It was. This I don't know how I got through this PT test and this obstacle course at my age, because I'm 45 years old, and but I just was like, I'm here and I'm doing this shit, and I just dug deep, man. I just kept going and going and going, and I made it through it, and I was gassed and bruised and battered for like 2 weeks. I could make walk after running that course or whatever, but I passed it, and I was in the 4th Training Battalion for about 2, maybe 2.5 weeks. One morning, the commander comes out and he says to everybody, he says, I had arrangements to go to 2nd Battalion in the Ukrainian Legion. I had, guys that I was supposed to meet up with there. He came out and said, everybody's going to 1st Battalion Charlie Company from Group 18. Now, when I first got to Ukraine, we were going through all the physicals and guys were talking to each other. Everyone said, don't go to 1st Battalion. 1st Battalion is the meat grinder. Don't go to 1st Battalion.
So it sounds like you have to go there.
What's that?
So it sounds like you have to go there.
Yeah, he just came out and was like, hey, guess what? The whole Group 18 is going to 1st Battalion Charlie Company. We're all just looking around at each other like, oh, okay, the meat grinder. He says, don't call it that. It's not the meat grinder. Your guy's going to be okay. And it's like, if you say so, dude, whatever. So I got the opportunity to meet a sergeant over there. It was a woman. Her call sign was Jeffrey. She was obsessed with Jeffrey Dahmer, right? So she's Ukrainian, and she loved the Netflix series Dahmer. So she went by the call sign Jeffrey. So she specialized in like light infantry drones. So she was part of 1st Battalion Charlie Company, but there was a specialized 8-man team that was called 3rd Platoon. So being I was prior Air Force, I had come across her and she says, hey, you American? I says, yeah. She says, where are you from? I says, I'm from Boston, because you don't tell anyone you're from Dartmouth, Massachusetts. Nobody knows where Dartmouth, Massachusetts is. But if you say Boston, everybody, like, it clicks in their head. So she actually was Ukrainian, but she had spent some time in Boston. She goes, "Oh yeah, me too. What branch of the military were you in?" I said, "Air Force." So now she thinks I'm like gonna be this squared away drone dude, right? So I personally, she was hot. So I'm like,
yeah, I know what I'm doing.
I was like, this sounds like a good opportunity. You know what I mean? So, so I said, yeah, I can rock out drones. Yeah, no problem. This, that, and the other things. Here we go. So we finished the 4th Training Battalion. We get sent over to 1st Battalion Charlie Company Barracks. And she starts taking us out into these training grounds. She starts breaking out drones. And let me tell you something. I was lucky. I had a guy from Latvia who was actually on the team as well. His call sign was Latina, and he knew how to use drones. So I got to spend a little bit of time with him getting coached up on drones before we actually went to these training grounds, and she could analyze what we were actually made of. So I was able to, do a couple of things with drones. Now, you have 3 types of drones in Ukraine. You have your Mavic that you use to do surveillance and reconnaissance. You have your Mavic that has a drop system on it where you drop VOD grenades right on top of Russians when you spot them. And then you have FPV drones that are a lot bigger and a lot louder, but you can put a massive payload on them and you just crash those fuckers right into them. They're like little kamikaze drones that you smash into Russian armor. You don't want to use a FPV drone on one Russian soldier. You want to use it on a group of Russian soldiers because, that's a nice juicy target. Or their light armor. You hit their light armor from behind with that thing, it's done. That Soviet era shit, their vehicles are shit. Their BMPs and their ATRs, they're shit light armor vehicles. You hit them in the right spot, they're done. They're also dumb enough to have their gas tanks literally like right on the sides of their truck, right by the passenger side door. So you slam that drone right into that gas tank on those trucks. Those things just fucking go up like the 4th of July. But
damn,
yeah, yep. So it was but I'll tell you, there was no high-speed helmets. There was 2003 Invasion of Iraq body armor. The uniforms are shit. As soon as I put my BDU bottoms on, tied my belt, bing bing bing, 3 belt oops broke. Okay, I put my BDU top on, I go to zip it up, the zipper breaks right off. This is just putting on the uniform. So like, thank God I bought like some of my own shit with me, because the uniforms were ridiculous. Dudes like would have like a cigarette ash hit them and they would just go up in flames and shit. It was, their helmets were these big bulky fucking trash helmets. Luckily I bought my own helmet with me, but there definitely wasn't any kind of like high speed gear, no night vision, none of that.
Fucking
It was
websites.
like, yeah. If you didn't bring your own kit, like you were wearing shit that just sucked, and it was what it was. You had to operate with it. So we didn't know at the time if we were going to go to Bakhmut or we were going to go to Donetsk. So we got word after just being coached up for about a week or so with the drones that we were going to Donetsk. They put our team together. Here comes just this convoy of just bullet-ridden trucks and pickups and vans. The windshields blowing out. There's potholes all in them all over the place from getting shot up from previous operations. And we just went in a convoy of 10 vans and we drove from Avarichi, Ukraine, all the way to the next region. We ended up in a town called Petrovsky, and that's where we operated. I was operating there. Now, during the course of one night when I was still at 1st Battalion Charlie Company, these air raid alarms would go off in the middle of the night. So we would always run out of our tents and go into the forest, and we had trenches set up. Anyway, one night, it was probably the 3rd air alarm of the night. It's like 4 o'clock in the morning. We're hauling ass through the woods to get into this trench. I wasn't paying attention. Bang, I fall right into this trench. So the pain that shot up my leg and into my lower back was just unbelievable. I stood up. I tried to walk. I fell. Bang, I got up. I tried to walk again. Bang, fell on the floor. So they ended up, I had a hard time walking for a couple of days. So they ended up bringing me over to this hospital where they did like this ultrasound. So my left meniscus was torn in half, and I had damage to my back. But they let me go with this Ukrainian driver, uh, by ourselves or whatever. So when they gave me the medical report they give to my commander, I just tore that shit up because I didn't want to end up being like recycled or any of that other shit, like, and not being forward deployed. I just sucked it up. I limped literally the whole time when I was in Ukraine. Just the pain in my knee and my back were unbelievable. And fortunately enough, once you break your Ukrainian military ID out, you could just walk into a pharmacy and get anything you want. So that's how I kind of got through it. I'd just give myself a couple injections if I needed it of anti-inflammatory, or even at times when it was really bad, morphine. But it's weird, the Ukrainian military ID kind of looks like a passport, and you can see just a couple of things. I don't even know what this shit even means or whatever. At some point I'll do like a Google Translate or whatever, but
A
I
bunch of
don't know.
shit. They just took your DNA and you're just going to be filed away somewhere.
Yeah. So yeah, I hit the report. I got deployed to Donetsk, and we rocked out in Donetsk. We did a couple of reconnaissance missions. Now, the most dangerous thing in Ukraine is, we went to what was called a safe house. A safe house was a bombed out building in the village of Petrovsky. And we went there, and I was with I had 8 guys with me at that time on my drone team. So I was assigned, my job was light infantry drone operator. So basically my job was to get me and my guys, once we dismounted from a truck, out to a pre-designated position, relieve the guys that were there, let them get out. We would set up and connect our drones, whatever this at, and guys would start launching drones and just start spotting Russians. And if we had the drone that was in the air that had a grenade on it, we would drop it on them. We'd use one drone to do reconnaissance and spot them. Once we spot them, we'd launch another bird, and we would have a grenade drop system.
No wonder we have a Russian who's watching this right now who claims he's a Russian from the naval forces. Do you want to like give out tactics on here or not?
Well, I'm just gonna say what I was doing. I'm not gonna give out specifics. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna get
just wanted to let you know. We're not here
I'm not gonna
partisan,
get
but
anything that I'm saying, everybody has seen on YouTube.
got it. Cool. All right, sounds good.
So
I wanted to keep you abreast of what that is.
Yeah, absolutely.
The guy could be totally full of shit. I have no idea. Most likely he is full of shit, but
oh yeah, well listen, I'll tell you something. We like to take a couple of videos that we shot and we share together and everything or whatever. And guys, it's cool. Guys actually make TikTok videos out of this shit. Even I have. It's just fun. It's just sharing our experience. And there's dudes that are from Russia that talk so much shit or whatever. But the bottom line is, their fighters suck. They're mostly using conscripts. Their air assault brigade guys are pretty squared away. You got to watch out for them. But they're mostly using conscript for their frontline people. And what they do is once that shit hits the fan, they either run. When they run and they retreat, they actually get shot by their own guys and mowed down. That's also common knowledge too. So they shoot their own people. They're using guys from mental hospitals, from prisons or whatever, to try to storm your position or whatever. They just get their asses mowed down. But what they have done is they have adapted to using these drones. So Russia has 10 times the amount of drones that Ukraine has, and then they're learning how to use them. They even have a drone now with a fiber optic cable connected to it, so you can't scramble it now. They're using that. We just captured one of those. And it was dodgy. But anyway, long story short, my knee started becoming a major issue. My back started becoming a major issue. My fiance was making my life an absolute living hell when I did get to have contact with her. So I decided it was maybe close to 5 months or whatever to wrap it up. And I was just didn't want to become any kind of a liability, because you would dismount and go 10 kilometers carrying 100+ pounds of equipment or whatever. When you're doing that for like the 20th, 30th time, you're just like, hey, enough. Let me wrap this one up and head on home. So I ended up heading home. Again, here we go again. Nothing's been confirmed. Nobody wants to admit anything, but so my fiance, I believe, in my opinion, started talking to some other dude when I was over there, and I was home for about 48 hours, and she was just basically like, yeah, you got to figure something else out. I didn't even have a chance to like let my feet hit the ground. So I ended up leaving, and my plan was to just go like John Rambo in First Blood, just roll around with a backpack and just wander around, and luckily I got in contact with a couple of guys. I didn't really know what I was going to do with myself, because then here we go again. History repeats itself. No job. I sold my truck to go to Ukraine to help fund myself to get there, and resigned from my job. Now my fiance doesn't want to be with me anymore, and she doesn't want me in the house. So, I kind of just bounced around for a week or two, and then someone from the VA put me in contact with the Veterans Transitional House in New Bedford, Mass. So I ended up trying to give this a shot or whatever. I'm currently residing here now, and I'm getting some services. I got some part-time employment going on, started, talking to another female myself. And I talked to a couple of females. I just did that thing. I did that thing when you got home from your deployment and you just started smashing beers and just hooking up with everything in sight.
Sheesh.
And you definitely got some patriotic females in New Bedford, Massachusetts, man.
Wait. Okay. I gotta ask you a question.
Yeah.
I've been dying to know, and I didn't, because I didn't know what your relationship status was. But what happened with Jeffrey?
So what happened with Jeffrey is just Jeffrey. It's like no one would even have the balls to even try it with her or whatever, because she was so badass. She kept it like a 1911 sidearm that she was real nasty with on the side of her hip or whatever, but she was the most genuine. She took care of her dudes. You know what I mean? She took care of her team. And what ended up happening with her is they ended up making her a commander, from a sergeant to a commander. So she was kind of preoccupied with getting set up with all that other stuff while we would operate and kind of do our own thing. One of the weird things that I encountered when I was in Ukraine, especially when I got to Eastern Ukraine, was, I started hearing these stories. So I was in Charlie Company, but the guys from Bravo were doing a patrol. We're doing a patrol to try to make it out to this village. And the civilians came out of their house and was like, oh, here you go, here's food, here's water. And dudes are eating and drinking, as they're moving, and they're just dropping out having seizures because they're getting poisoned.
Damn.
Because these, in Eastern Ukraine, there was a lot of people that were like pro-Russian, and you could always tell who's pro-Russian by the satellite dish that they would have on their house, because it would be pointed towards the east, which means they're watching Russian TV. You know what I mean? So those are the houses that you want to watch out for. You don't want to take food off civilians. So one location, they were trying to figure out where the house was that gave the food and whatnot to Bravo. We took it upon ourselves without permission to launch a bird. And we found the house on a drone with a couple of guys from Bravo. We waited to 0 to 100. We went and burnt the fucking house down. So, I mean, there was a lot of shit that we were able to do without getting any permission from anybody. The Legion was wild. I mean, there was a lot of shit that went on in the Legion, And by the way, that whole $4,000 a month salary, never saw a cent of it. Never saw 1 cent of it. They gave me my Ukrainian military ID. They gave me the Ukrainian debit card. Never saw a cent. So,
Damn.
I was never able to send any money back home to the fiance. I think that kind of put things in a really bad space between us because it was arguing over money and stuff like that. So my advice, for guys in a nutshell, because I'm not going to go on and on about it, but if you're thinking about going to Ukraine, Ukraine's for dudes that just don't have a wife, don't have a kid, maybe they're struggling with addiction or alcoholism and working some shit job and trying to find some kind of purpose somewhere, and if you can live with not getting paid any money and be able to operate like that over there, though, and if you have not been in the military, don't go to Ukraine. Don't do it. Just forget it. It's not a video game. It's not a movie. You will jeopardize yourself. You will jeopardize other people. Don't go to Ukraine if you haven't been in the military. But if you're prepared to go over there and just volunteer, there's definitely a lot of corruption in the Ukrainian military and Ukrainian government as well. I love Ukraine. I love the Ukrainian soldiers, but the commanders were straight shitbags. And they did not appreciate us for shit. They treated us like we were dogs, like we were meat. They would send us out on suicide missions. We'd get these briefings and they would come up with the dumbest shit for a plan of, attack or whatever. I'm not going to get into the details of that.
Sure, yeah.
They would come up with the dumbest shit ever. And they don't go by any kind of NATO standards or whatever. They just come up with dumb shit. And if people die, they don't really give a fuck. I seen, 2 Ukrainian soldiers get shot and killed, by our guys. And the commanders didn't give a fuck. Dudes were really broken up over that one too. It was a mistake. It was an accident, but it happened on one operation, and they didn't care. They actually, said the words, when we were talking to them about it, about these guys, they said, fuck them, just like that. And I was like, wow, man, I'm like, I'm injured. I'm broke. My fiance's pissed. I've done this already. We're not really appreciated by the commanders here. Yeah. We got locals poisoning us and shit. I'm like, yeah, enough's enough for me. And I made my way back home. And, I made it out with my life. So,
yeah, you did.
And what a life that was, man. Jeez.
It is. So here's the thing. We're coming up on our hour. I want to have you back on so we can dig in a little bit more, if you're cool with that. Because I feel like there's more that I would like to talk to you about.
There's so much more.
Yeah. I would love to talk to you more about your story and what the coming home experience is looking like for you. I think you being in the middle of it right now is very useful, and it could be useful to you to talk to us as well. And I really look forward to that deeper conversation. Are you okay with coming back on again?
100%, man. Just let me know a day and a time and I'm in.
All right, cool. So then this is going to be episode 1 of This, That, and the Other with Ant from New York. And then we'll have an episode 2 of This, That, and the Other with Ant from New York. And I really am. I'm so excited about it. I by the way, thank you for letting us bust your balls and have a good time with you too. You do have a very serious fucking story. And it is heard, respected, and felt.
Fascinating.
It is fascinating as well. Hooked. I really do want to have an episode 2 where we can dive into the important shit too, which is, what's going on behind the ears, or going on between the ears, really, behind the eyes. So, and I think that'll be really valuable information for others, and as well, again, for you. So we'll do that. We'll definitely have that coming up. Thank you to everybody that tuned in today, to the Russian, even you, bro. Hi. Even if you're fucking real. He was very respectful. I don't know if he's actually Russian or not, but he was respectful, it looked like.
Yeah, they're actually we actually call them orcs. That's like the little nickname that the Ukrainians come up for them. They call them orcs. I don't know what that shit means or whatever. Called orcs.
I wonder what Prusa means, if that's pork in Russian.
I have no idea. O-R-K, orc. I don't know what.
Oh, orc.
Yeah,
it's the bad guys in Lord of the Rings.
Orcs, like in Lord of the Rings. Got
it.
Yeah,
man. But hey, anytime you guys let me know. Just Wade, be in touch, man. Let me know, and I'll definitely come back on. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you guys and share my story.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, we got to write. we got to sit down with you and read a book with you. Like this is you're a guerrilla fighter, dude. Like you're a fucking mercenary, and
Not
I think
once but twice.
yeah, multiple times, man. I'm definitely in to write the story of the Lord of the Rings Dirt Devils. So you're in Lord of the Rings, you would be like a berserker for I guess the humans. Is that's the way I would view you. You're like a human berserker.
The book would be
It would-
called The Ukraine, the Terrorists, and Jeffrey.
It would be actually. I'm a Lord of the Rings expert. He'd be a Gondorian. Just saying. You know?
You're a Gondorian. There you go.
I'll take
Uh,
that.
So yeah, man, absolutely fantastic. Thank you again for joining us today, and everybody else that's with us. There will be a part 2 to this where we can dive into the FML type shit. This was a perfect setup and a great episode. So thank you so much, Anthony, for your time today. Really appreciated it, and really appreciate you. Great job, Ski. Another great guest, and Ski's really been doing a great job scraping these bad boys up, man, and bringing in some good peeps. So
Scraping.
yeah, let's go, dude. Appreciate you. Yeah, here's another guy.
What do we got
Here's
in
another guy. Here's another guy. He's fucking picking them up, dude. So yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much, Ant.
Hey, thank you. I look forward to speaking to you guys again.